keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
We have in studio this morning David Arthur. Now, we've talked to David on the show before. We were surprised to have him visit us today. He just knocked on the door, said, "Can I come down to the studio? I got something to talk about." And I'm going, "Well, I guess so, David. I mean, why not?" You drive all the way from where?
Maine.
Maine?
And I asked for a cup of coffee.
That's a long way. I make good coffee, though. I really do.
Yeah. In a great kitchen.
That too. That
Great
too.
kitchen.
Yeah, we've talked to David before. David has a very interesting story. David is a full-blooded Christian these days. Wasn't always that way, and I guess for those that maybe haven't met you before, David, we'll start where you started, which was in the streets in Philadelphia. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it started in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And ended up in the streets of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And you want me to just go?
Yeah, what were you
into
doing in the streets of Philadelphia? You playing out in traffic?
Yeah, I was actually. I was playing on the corners, distracting traffic, as they used to say we were doing. But yeah, by the age of 14, I was runaway. I was homeless. I was confused. I thought I was transgender. I lived as.
But you were born that way, weren't you, David?
Yeah, according to most people, I was.
Yeah.
According to most people, I was created that way too. But yeah, by the age of 14, golly, BJ, I was a mess. I was a hot mess. I had HIV. I was prostituting my body out in the streets of Philadelphia, dressing like a girl, taking female hormones. At 14 years old, injecting female hormones into my own body that I bought on the street and at a club.
Wait, they're selling hormones?
Oh yeah, they
street?
sell hormones on the street. In the
Not just
nightclubs
drugs,
and all.
hormones.
Not just drugs, hormones. Yeah, you can buy. Part of the taking the female hormones is you take birth control pills.
Say what?
Birth control pills is a good source of female hormones, estrogen.
You know, I never thought about that, but yeah.
And so they sell them on the street in the clubs to the trannies.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I started having like silicone injected into my face when I was like 16, 17 years old. And this isn't done by a doctor either. This is done in somebody's home that learned how to do it from somebody else. They get these containers of industrial silicone and they fill up a needle and inject it into your face.
How did they get the silicone? Did you ever ask? Or
No, I never asked.
man, that is crazy with them. Cause that's wow. That's just crazy. Now I want to get into the transgender, but one of the things we talk about a lot here is the natural family.
Right.
That being one man, one woman,
One man, one
lifelong
woman.
committed
As
relationship.
God created them
Yeah.
to be.
And we find that, and by the way, that's an anomaly in this day. That what I just talked about, one man, one woman,
Oh, absolutely.
not being divorced, not into pornography, not into drugs, good grief, you name it, and it's being offered in the family, that it's one man blue and one woman pink. But the security of the family, and I've learned throughout history, Rome, Greece, etc., is so critical to especially men. And I understand, David, that you kind of had a rough upbringing in terms of the family.
Yeah, I did. You know, my father, he committed suicide just before I was born. And my mother and father weren't married to begin with. You know, she was still married to her husband, to her last husband, when she was living with my father. And, you know, but again, you know, we weren't Christian. We didn't have that moral compass that God instills in us with His Holy Spirit.
Right.
We didn't have that. But and actually the only thing that my mother had was, by nature, she knew to tell me, I will not accept. I had a son. I did not have a daughter. And don't come to my house with no makeup on. Don't come to this house with a dress on, because you are David. You are my son.
So you're growing up. You grew up in Atlantic City. Is that where you grew up?
Yes.
Okay. You're growing up in Atlantic City, and did you start getting into the transgender lifestyle there, or was it when you moved?
I think I started there. I was molested as a child.
Okay, and that's not unusual, by the way.
No, it's not.
For folks that of your past persuasion, if you
Right.
will.
Well, they call it recruited. The LGBT movement calls it recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so these men, they go out looking for the little boys, and the women go out looking for little girls. It's not just men. But they go out looking for the ones that lack the male affirmation and confirmation in their life, the ones that are desiring that male companionship, a father figure. And when they find them, they prey on them. So
And if they don't have the father figure in the family, it's a lot easier to recruit.
it's
them,
much
right?
easier,
Yeah.
much easier. One was a neighbor, one was a family friend, and there were several others.
Gangs do that a lot. You don't have a father, they can.
They become your family.
Your family, exactly.
And that's what this movement does too.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
by
think you had mentioned earlier about you were moving around with, as in a family, you were really welcomed.
yeah,
You-
they
you weren't
they
being
welcome
rejected.
you, open
You weren't being
arms.
yeah.
They want to love on you, hug on you, touch on you, feel on you. They just want to cling to you because they have nobody else in their life
Yep,
too.
yep.
You know, and they're rebellious to their lives too, and to their very nature. And so for me, I got to the point where I just associated molestation, sexual activity with male affirmation and love. And I started
As
going
part of
out.
your family. Again, I can't get
Yeah.
away from the family thing. This was your family.
This was my
I mean,
family.
It was bastardized, if you will.
Yes.
But this
Oh,
was
absolutely.
But it was your like a gang member. It was still your family, and you felt really close and associated to it.
I felt an obligation.
Ah.
And I think that obligation it reveals itself in many ways, especially in the way where somebody might tell you that, well, you know that homosexuality or transgenderism is wrong,
Yeah.
but you have an obligation. One, it's an obligation to that movement because that's your family. But two, you have a prideful arrogance that you can't admit you're wrong. So you'd rather
Yeah.
physically attack somebody to prove to them that you're happy and you are content in the way you're living. And I can't even say in your lifestyle because it's not a lifestyle, it's a death style. And, you know, so you have an obligation to that movement. And it's really with anything that we go into. If we are a part of something, we have an obligation to it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I am a bondservant of Jesus Christ. I have an obligation to Him to make sure that I do anything and everything I can to further His kingdom, because that's all I've been commissioned to do. You know, all I have to do is be the salt and the light, and He moves upon the people and He saves them. All I have to do is catch them and He cleans them. That's it. That's all I'm obligated to do.
Well put.
And that's everything. You know, that's everything for me. But when you're involved in this movement, you really do feel that you are this way. But even though you feel deep inside that you are this way, you also know that it's not right. You also know that it's wrong. You will never admit it. Never. I would have never admitted it. You know, it wasn't until I got out of that movement that I could say, I always knew it was wrong.
Yeah, inherently, you know, if we're born with anything, it's with that sense of right and wrong.
Right.
We are born with that. And we,
Yeah.
And we do know that.
That's that God dot, I call it. He puts that God dot in us.
Yes, sir.
And we know right from wrong, whether whether we participate in it or feel like doing it, or if it feels good, we still know it's wrong.
I grew up in the 60s. If it feels good, do it.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I used to walk through a mall looking like a woman with breasts, everything. And men, you know, and you would think that I wanted to portray a woman so bad that I would like that attention and I would feed off of just that. But no, I wanted more. It had to be more attention. So when the men said, "Whoa, hey girl, come here, let me talk to you," I had to turn around and say, hey, I'm a man. You know, because I wanted that attention. There was even more attention now. The same thing when I was a child. I noticed how men treated women.
ooh, yes.
And so when I looked at how men treated women, and I wanted the attention from the man because I didn't have that male affirmation in my life. Then I figured, well, let me start acting like a woman. The more feminine I acted, the more attention I received. I was a pretty little boy, and so I could pass as a little girl just as a little boy. And so I would be mistaken for a little girl often. And that just was really something to my advantage in that world.
Yeah.
Because then, when at 13 I overdosed on pills, but at 11, 12, and 13 I was hanging out with hookers and pimps and drug addicts and engaging in sexual activity with homeless people under the boardwalk in Atlantic City. I was doing anything and everything I could to get as much attention as I could.
13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, by 14 we moved to Philadelphia. And at 14 I was a runaway. I just said, forget this. Here's this. Why do I want to have to listen and have rules at home when this movement, this community, as they call it, is out here saying, we love you, we welcome you with open arms,
Here's
you're
your
meant
family.
to be that
Here's
way,
your real
we
family.
are your family.
Yes, sir.
And so they just took me in. And then the older transgenders would take me under their wing. They'd take me to their house. They'd pimp me out. Ultimately, what they were doing was pimping me out. But I'm thinking, you know, that they're leading me in the way. They're showing me how to do makeup, how to dress. They're lending me clothes. They're hooking me up with clients so I have money. But they were pimping me out, you know. And so this family becomes my foe, ultimately, in the spiritual realm especially. And I start breaking away from the movement, but not from the actions, because then the recruited became the recruiter.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the molested become the molester. The victim became the victimizer. And so I started luring in 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys into that movement.
Wow.
I started walking down because I knew that the way that I looked, the way I was built because of the hormones, and the way that I dressed, I looked like the strippers and the video dancers that they would see in the rap videos and the music videos. And I looked like that, and so I drew their attention. And then I would break the news that I was a man. Sometimes I'd do it at the last moment before it was too late, and I wouldn't allow them to leave.
After it was too late.
Yeah, it was just too late.
You get so involved in it.
Yeah, and I started watching but see, that is what I've seen. All of my childhood, I watched this movement lure children in.
Yeah. Your family.
Yeah,
that's what
my
you saw in your family
they're
growing up.
luring children
This
in,
is
so
what the
I
rest
have
of
to
your
do the
family's
same
doing, yeah.
thing.
Okay.
You know, like go out and recruit them.
We mimic.
Kind of like what pimps do with girls.
Gotcha.
And sex traffickers, they do with young girls and young boys. They send them out, go to the park. Let's go meet that one and bring them to the car. Say, you know, come look for your puppy with you. You know, something like that. And that's ultimately what we were doing. And I watched these children be brought into this movement and be passed around and profited off of.
Children as young as...
I've seen some as young as probably like 7, 8, 9 years old.
Wow.
And I can say this, that I used to always stress when I first started really being transparent and talking about, I used to stress teenage boys. But guess what? It don't matter. It don't matter if they're teenage boys or prepubescent boys. They're children. And so I would try to say teenage boys, 12, 13, 14 years old, just like I just did. You know? Because to me, in my mind, 12, 13, 14, 15 is better than 6, 7, 8, and 9. But it's not. You know, pedophilia is pedophilia. It don't matter what the term, you know, what your gotcha. Desire is. It's pedophilia. I was guilty of pedophilia. And I was guilty of molesting children into that movement.
Speaking of guilty, did you like yourself at this time, David? How'd you feel about yourself? You've got this family and they all love you, so you had to feel pretty good about yourself, didn't you? Or was there something negative?
I think the pride and the facade was magnificent for me because I could walk around with a smile on my face and look like a woman, and all the young kids that were coming into it and wanted to be that, they had somebody to look up to. And
you're the star of the family.
Yeah, the nightclub owners would call me to come go on their float for the parade. You know, oh yeah, we need. Come on,
David Arthur,
yeah. Come on, come get on our float. But
B.J. Edwards, by the way, when we're talking with David Arthur, a former transgender, and he tells a very interesting story. We're talking about families and what he was involved with, and we left him on the streets of Philadelphia. So we'll pick you back up on the streets of Philadelphia, David.
And you know what?
On the floats.
On the floats, yeah. And it just gets, you get to the point where you just know in deep inside of you that you're not content, that you're not happy. And you know that and the only way that you're going to figure out that you're not content is because the 16-year-old boy is only enough for so long.
Ew.
The 20 bag of cocaine is only enough for so long.
Okay.
The pint of liquor is only good enough for so long.
Oh my.
Because then you get bored with that. And you get complacent with it.
Gotcha.
And now, okay, well, you know what? I'm tired of the teenage boys. Let's go to the 12-year-old boy. You know, let's go buy an 8-ball of cocaine this time.
You're going from marijuana to heroin.
To heroin,
Okay.
yeah. You know, and you want that high. Even the sexual high, the endorphins, you want them to just keep going, so you get deeper and darker and deeper and darker. I mean, I ventured into sadomasochism, bondage, discipline, role playing, and some very dangerous role playing at that. And it just got darker and darker. And there was a moment in my life when I looked at a 10-year-old boy, and I could see myself lusting after him. And I knew that's where I had to draw a line.
Oh my. Okay.
I could not, because I actually saw me.
Oh, okay.
I looked at this boy playing outside, and I was at his house with his family, and I looked at him outside, and I could see myself. I can't say that I lusted after him at that moment, but I could see myself going that far. And at that very moment, I looked and I saw me.
Wow.
And that right there told me that I was spiraling down a staircase that I had no business even being in.
You're doing some very interesting things with your body parts. Some very unnatural things with your body parts.
Very unnatural.
Okay. How'd that work out for you, David?
The hormones, they caused osteoporosis. They caused my bone density loss. They caused so many issues with my joints, my bones, everything. And even my functions, my bodily functions. When you engage in anal sex for so long, you have issues.
Yeah.
2011 is something that I don't really publicize or talk about a lot, but I had an amazing healing.
Okay.
In 2007, I was diagnosed with rectal cancer.
2007.
2011.
Okay. 2011.
Yeah, did I say 7?
Yeah.
2011. And it was dysplasia, as the doctor said it.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And colon cancer. And it was called dysplasia, and the cells were there, and the cells were transforming into cancer.
Gotcha.
And I went in, and the doctor said, technically you have colon cancer, and we need to remove and cauterize whatever we can in order to keep you from having any medical...
So you're going to have a bag on your side?
Yeah, a bag.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's do it. And I didn't ask for God to heal me, and I was a believer at that point. I was all in.
Whoa.
I was all in.
Whoa. In 2011?
Yeah.
Okay, you accepted Christ as your personal Savior?
2009, yeah, because I had already accepted Christ, and I was living for God.
Okay.
I was in His Word. I was on fire for Him. I mean, I was driving around with my Bible.
You stopped
on
all
the
the
steering
sexual
wheel.
practices
Not
you're
just
into?
were, but are.
Yeah.
You stopped all the sexual practices that you're
Oh
into?
yeah, absolutely. Since 2009,
Okay.
done. But I didn't even ask Him to heal me. I said, Lord, use this.
Okay.
You have already healed me, and rose me up off my deathbed, which he did in 2009. And I said, just use this for your glory.
Off your deathbed in 2009?
Yeah.
What happened in 2009?
Whew. Let me go back to 2006 when I was in prison. The second time.
Oh, you were in prison?
Oh, second time in prison.
So you just didn't have all this fun on the streets? You had
Oh, no. You know, I was in juvenile detention center
Okay.
as a juvenile. They were always picking me up,
Surprise,
prostitution, runaway.
Yeah.
And I always saw myself as a commodity.
Ah, ooh.
And then when I went from juvenile to adult county jail, I was even more of a commodity. Because, see, there were homosexuals in there.
Is that right?
But there weren't homosexuals that looked like I looked.
I got you.
You know, I was always the one to push things to the extreme. So I took more female hormones than I was supposed to be taking. I did more to my body than I was supposed to be doing. You know, I always had to do more. I had to be the extreme.
You were competitive.
I wanted all the attention.
Gotcha. Okay.
Second time in prison. Once again, I want all the attention. I'm a man in a man's prison with breasts. I look like a woman. And I'm on the rec yard cheerleading with my t-shirt tied up and my little shorts on, and I'm cheerleading.
And you look like a woman from the waist up, right?
Look like a woman
Like a
from the waist
good-looking
up.
woman from
Yes.
the waist up. Okay.
As a matter of fact, I just recently, someone said, well, how big were they? And I
Yeah.
said they were 38D.
Oh.
And yeah, he almost fell out of his chair. What? Where'd they go? Actually, he said, where'd the boobs go?
Yeah.
You know, so, but I'm cheerleading.
Where did they go, David?
That's a God dot. That's a God dot.
It's a God dot?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to tell you about that.
Okay.
Because and you know what, and I don't think that I'm any more special or any more blessed than anyone else is or can be. But what I do know is that God has chosen me, blessed me, rose me up for a purpose. And this is the purpose. Okay, but I'm cheerleading on the rec yard, and I'm watching this correctional officer who's like 6'6" walk across, and I notice the way he's looking at me, and he's shaking his head, and I'm like, here we go. And he says, come here. So I bounce up to him. And he says, what's your name? I said, Paige. He said, no. What's the name your mama gave you? I said, David. He said, well, David. He said, do you know that God didn't create you to be this way?
Oh my God, he was a Christian?
Tell me I was so offended.
Tell me it ain't so. Oh, shame on him.
BJ, I was offended.
Shame on him.
He hurt my feelings.
Yeah,
he offended me. He
That's not what we're
violated
about,
me.
David. That's not what
He
we're about.
violated me. And I felt violated. And I said, of course he did. Look at me. I do this well. He said, no. He said he didn't even intend for you to look like that. And I said, yeah, so what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to tell you every day that God didn't create you to be that way. He said, there's nothing you could do about it. I said, so?
That's sad. He just does not understand what to do with it.
I'm telling you, I don't know.
He didn't put his arms around you and hug you and say, I love you the way you are.
No, he actually, sadly, he loved me to life.
Yeah.
He loved me to life. Instead of loving me to death, he loved me to death. He loved me to life. And
good for him, by the way.
Amen. If it wasn't for him loving me, well, and loving God enough to honor me and tell me the truth,
Love you enough to tell you the truth, yep.
I wouldn't be here.
Yep.
And so every day he told me, hey, what? God didn't create you to be this way, I know. Even if he didn't work on the rec yard or in my dorm,
Yeah.
he would call the officers in my dorm and say, send him over here. And I would walk into his dorm. He said, God didn't create you to be that way. Now go back to your dorm. Get out of my face. And I'm blown away because it only took a few weeks before I'm looking for him.
Oh.
A few weeks I'm looking for him. I'm seeking him out. I want to talk. We called him Bishop. I don't remember his name, but we called him Bishop. And I'll tell you something about Bishop. Bishop talked to the inmates the same way he talked to his coworkers. He witnessed, he didn't treat anybody any differently. Nobody was any better than anybody. He treated everybody the same.
Could he do that today, David, in the prison systems? Would he be allowed to do that?
He did it.
Okay.
It didn't matter whether he was allowed. And now I know that he came from working for the federal government, and that may have a reason why he was able to witness to people the way he witnessed to even officers, whether
Maybe.
they wanted to
Okay.
hear it or not. He may have had he may have had a leg to stand on there. But I looked for Bishop. I wanted to talk to Bishop. If I was and I'm sitting on my bunk and people sitting, all around, we're smoking our cigarettes in the dorm we're not supposed to be, and people were doing things we're not supposed to be doing, and oh, here comes Bishop, I'm out of here. I say, y'all go ahead, I want to talk to him.
Neat.
And I sit there and talk to him for 30, 45 minutes, and he'd tell me stories out of the Bible. He'd tell me about Moses and Paul the apostle, and how what he used to do, and how, and how the erratic, amazing change just because Jesus touched him. And I one thing I knew about Bishop was that he loved me. He was the first man
Go on.
that I'd ever come across
Mm-hmm.
in my whole life that truly and purely loved me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't want anything from me. He didn't want to use me up. He didn't want to have sex with me. He didn't want to profit off me. He didn't want to hurt me. He just wanted to love me.
Wow.
And he wanted me to know this truth that he had.
Okay. So he planted a seed. You're in prison. You get out of prison, but you're not there yet. You're not.
Yeah,
ready.
he planted the seed. He watered it every chance he got.
Yeah.
And I got out in 2006 and like a dog returned to my
There
vomit.
you go. There you go.
But there was a difference.
Uh-huh.
I no longer felt comfortable dressing like a woman.
Oh.
I no longer felt comfortable with my breasts. I no longer felt comfortable putting on makeup. And I didn't want to be Paige anymore.
Wow.
And
Well,
now,
what were you then?
David,
David?
just gay Dave.
Dave? Okay.
Gay Dave. And now I know that was God starting to stir something within me. And I had to learn how to live as David again.
It's a process. Yeah, I understand. It's you. I mean, you went pretty deep. This is B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. Your last call, and we're talking to David Arthur, former transgender, former homosexual, who tells a very interesting story. And David, you were pretty deep into the hole. I mean,
I was very deep. I was so deep that I was at a place where a lot of them right now they're at, and they think they're too far gone.
yeah.
They think that there's no turning back
Yes, sir.
now
Mhm.
because I have these breasts sitting on my chest and I can't get rid of them. So how am I going to do this or do that? Well, let me tell you, 2008, I was stricken down with osteoporosis, and it was so severe that I couldn't stand up straight. I had to walk with a walker and drag myself everywhere.
From taking all the hormones.
Yeah,
and
from all the
everything.
hormones,
Okay.
the clothing that wasn't designed for a man's body, the high heels,
Okay.
you know, the sexual encounters. If your body is not made for it, it's traumatizing your body.
Great point.
And I'm dragging myself around, but that didn't stop me. I'm in excruciating pain. I'm taking OxyContin and oxycodone from the doctors and hydrocodone, and I'm taking street drugs, and I'm still in pain, and I'm dragging myself around, but I'm still satisfying the lust of my flesh.
Gotcha.
I'm on a walker, going to the club, going to the bar, going to the casino, going to the
Absolutely
hotel
amazing.
with men, having sex parties.
Wow.
On a walker. Help me. Hey guys, help get me into the hot tub and then you can have your way with me.
Man,
Give me
That's
some more
incredible.
alcohol.
that's
You know,
incredible.
and
That's deep, brother. That
that's
is
deep.
Yeah.
That's deep. Like nothing was gonna stop me. But God. 2009, I was stricken down with full-blown AIDS.
Ah.
I had boils popping out all over my body.
And the osteoporosis, and I think you had some diabetes as well.
I had diabetes, neuropathy. I had infections in my brain, infections in my blood.
AIDS.
Full-blown AIDS, no immune system. My T cells, which your white blood count, they went from like way up to 11 to 0 within weeks. They were just gone.
Oh my goodness.
My viral load went from probably like the hundreds to the hundreds of thousands per part. It was just
I'm not
like
laughing
that.
at you, David. I'm just amazed at what the story.
And
So you're dead.
I'm dead.
You're dead.
And the doctors, you don't even have to take the HIV medication anymore because there is no hope.
Mm-hmm.
No
This
hope.
is 2000 and...
2009.
How old are you?
At that time, 37.
37 in 2009.
Yes. I said, okay, I'm going home to die. And I accepted that I was going to die. I knew without a doubt that I was going to die.
Well, I guess.
And there was no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to survive this. So they put a hospital bed. They put the linoleum floor in. They put a hospital bed. They gave me all the niceties, the little commode, the little urinal.
In your mother's house or in some...
In me and my mom's house,
Okay.
yeah. And in place of my own stuff, they put all new stuff so I could die in peace. And they put hospice in place and told my mom to make arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
My mom never made arrangements.
Mm.
She kept putting it off because she couldn't bring herself to do it.
Yeah, I understand.
But,
You already died, by the way, in her mind several times, I'm sure.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I should have never survived some of the situations I was in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know now that it was spiritual and God had his thumb on me because I should not have survived some situations I was in.
Well, let's see. Full-blown AIDS, osteoporosis.
Getting shot, getting stabbed, rolling around the middle of the street with an ice pick stuck in my chest, fighting somebody, having somebody stick a gun in my mouth and tell me 2 men. And this is why I believe in that God will truly touch people's minds and make them see and think and feel things that they don't see, think, and feel. Because I had 2 men, one standing on each side of me. My head was against a brick wall, and he put a gun in my mouth, and he said, if you're a man, your life is over. Your brains will be on that wall. And each one of them stuck a hand in my panties. And I know what each of them grabbed.
Yeah.
But they looked at each other and said, I told you she was a... They used a bad word referring to a woman. I told you she was a woman. And as he pulled the gun out of my mouth, his eyes got real big and he said, you've just been blessed.
Ooh.
And they jumped in their car and they took off. And now me being prideful and arrogant and wanting to believe that it's all about me, they'll be back. They just want me.
You're special.
Yeah.
You're special.
But now I know God had a hand in that. And that God had them, they truly believed that they felt the anatomy of a woman. And when he looked at me, God used him. If God can speak through an ass, he can speak through a
I got you.
a
different sort of ass.
thug, but yeah, different sort of an I was gonna say that. Oh, but yeah. And when he said, "You've just been blessed," I just was blessed, and so.
So you're on your deathbed.
So I'm on my deathbed.
You're dying.
I know I'm dead. I accept I'm dead. I know 2 things. I'm afraid to die,
Okay.
and I don't want to go to hell
Oh yeah.
because I know, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to hell. I know it.
But didn't you think you were a Christian at the time, though?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay.
no, I did. I wanted to believe that God created me that way, but I knew that just wasn't right.
Okay. Okay.
But I was not a Christian. We weren't raised Christian at all. And I picked up the Bible that sat next to my bed that I had when I was in prison. The only thing I ever read in the Bible was Psalms.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? Only because I thought they were inspirational. But that Bible that my mom sent me while I was in prison, I brought home from prison and it sat on my end table, like the good person that I believe I was. Because I had a good heart.
Yeah.
I had a good heart. But as I'm intentionally and purposely infecting thousands of people with HIV,
Say that again.
attempting to intentionally and purposely infect thousands with HIV
Because you hated men and yourself?
because I hated everybody. I just hated. And so I knew I was going to hell. And
Hate's a powerful emotion, isn't it?
very, very. Because it drives us to do things that we can't even fathom doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like now I look back and I'm like, gosh, how could I have? How could that have even lived in me?
Well, you've had the antidote, love. So-
Right. But, you know, we can't understand how that could even dwell within us. That magnitude of hate. I open up the Bible. I open up to Romans 1. And the very first verse I read was 27. And it said, not men burning in lust for one another, giving up the natural use of the woman. And then I hear
Love that word, natural.
bishop.
Oh,
I hear
your-
bishop in my head.
Your 6'6" friend.
I told you, God didn't create you to be that way. That you weren't. That you didn't even. He didn't even intend for you to look like that. That it's. And I'm thinking now. Not only am I living sinfully, which I knew, I just knew it, but I'm living unnaturally. I'm in direct opposition to God's very intent of creating me. I'm in opposition to God Almighty, the God up there, you know, the God. I'm in opposition to Him. And,
Now you know that.
oh yes.
Now you know.
I knew it. That moment, I knew it, and I was like,
You were convicted of it.
I was very convicted.
Okay.
So I dove into the Word. I'm reading. I'm okay, I got to believe. Oh, I believe. Lord, I believe. But I didn't. I repented, but I didn't just, oh Lord, forgive me. I confessed for weeks. And I knew that God knew every little detail. He knew every alley, every back car seat, every dumpster I'd been bent over. He knew all that.
You were erasing those things in the book of life, weren't you?
But his word was so detailed to me and so precise that I wanted to be just as detailed in giving it all to him.
Yeah.
And I just kept calling it out and confessing it to him. And everybody that came to see me, I would tell them, don't ever, ever accept this as normal. Don't ever tell somebody it's okay to be gay.
These are gay friends that came to visit you? Or?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and family. And I now call people up on the phone and tell them, you know, there is hope for you. You're not too far gone because you had the operation. You do know that, right? And of course they'd hang up on me. They all thought I was crazy because I was on pain
You're gonna
meds
die. You're
and
gonna die
dying.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's
We'll
having a
ignore it.
Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And I was in so much pain that the pain pills weren't really touching it. And when I say I had boils, I mean I had boils. I had softball-sized boils popping out
Job
all
type
over
boils,
my
huh?
Job-type boils. And they're painful. I couldn't even put into words how painful they are. But my bones were hurting too. And my nerves, I had neuropathy, I had nerve pain.
Man.
So from the very core of me to the very out, I was in pain.
Constant.
Constant.
Any drugs that would help get rid of it? Or
I would have to take like extra Oxycontin and Oxycontin. Now they had me on 320 milligrams of Oxycontin twice a day. And I could take anywhere from 120 to 240 milligrams of oxycodone every 4 hours. And sometimes that wasn't even enough. And I would take more. And I was doing street drugs.
I was in a pharmacy for a while, and there's, in addition to what you have, the pain that you're having, those drugs have side effects that we won't talk about, but
Yeah.
they had side effects as well.
Yes.
So you were, I'm
Yeah.
sure you were ready to die.
Yeah,
Just
and I
get
was
me outta
in,
here.
because I was believing I was in more pain than I was really in
Yep, yep.
at certain times.
Absolutely.
You know, because my body wanted more drugs.
Yeah.
And so I was taking street drugs too to try to numb it. Valium, Percocet, anything I could get my hands on.
You're a mess, brother.
Oh, I was a hot mess. And I woke up one morning, and amidst all this pain and all this chaos and turmoil inside of me, I had peace. And peace doesn't mean quiet and still, and peace is just something that you know you have when you have it.
Low anxiety. No panic.
Yeah. And I was at peace, and I knew for the first time in my life what rest meant.
Oh.
And I had joy. I was actually happy at that moment, and I knew that the only reason I was happy was because I was not going to hell. And I was no longer afraid to die.
And you're ready to check out, aren't you?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I wanted to go.
Yeah, I know.
I accepted I was going, and I wanted to go. I said, okay, Lord, please take me home. I said, please just take me out of my misery. I don't want to look like this. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be like this. And I'm just tired.
Okay. You ready for the next step? Check out.
I just want to go home. I said, but please, the only request I have is that you are glorified in my death.
Uh-oh.
That my mom or somebody in my family or a friend will come to know you. Just one person will come to know you.
Good for you.
Through my death. And then I just waited. Like he's coming to get me any minute now. And I really believed I was going to die,
yeah.
And I did. You know, God honored my request. David died.
Mm-hmm.
The old David died, dead and gone, buried. The new creature, I was reborn. The new creature, bam. I started getting up out of the bed. I started standing up straight. I started using just a cane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then no cane.
Mm-hmm.
Then the nurses come out, they draw my blood. A couple days later, my nurse practitioner, who happens to be a Christian, and used to ask me if I wanted to pray, and I'd say no, absolutely not. Yeah. What do I want to pray to God for? Right. God did this to me.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and instead of...
So there was a time you blamed God.
Yeah, you know, it was a time where I would say, well, God did this.
Yeah.
He allowed it, so why would I... There's 2 times I spoke to God as a child. The first time was to ask him if I could wake up and be a girl. And the second time was to shake my fist at him and say, why didn't you make me a girl?
Yeah.
Why did you do this to me?
B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call. We're speaking with David Arthur. Very interesting testimony. So, David, you're starting to turn things. Your body's starting to heal itself, or that's what physicians would say, or God has. Something's healing you. Something's healing you.
Yes, and the nurse practitioner calls me. So, David, how you doing? I said, I'm good. Can you come into the office so we can talk?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I think there's something wrong. Because they never want me to come in the office unless something was really wrong.
Yeah.
And when I started getting really sick, they were doing all kinds of tests on the boils to see what kind of infections they were.
Gotcha.
And there were all kinds of infections. They were fungal, bacterial, all kinds. And so I went in and I'm sitting there with her, and she goes, David, I got to tell you something. Dr. Z is not coming in this office. I said, why not? She said, because he doesn't have a scientific explanation for you. I said, for what? She goes, well, you're undetectable. She says, and with the note, well, she said, with
undetectable?
You, well, first she said to me that he can't explain the improvement, and then she said that you're undetectable. I said, well, what's undetectable mean? Because I had never heard it. And she said, it means that we can't detect the virus in your system.
The HIV?
Yes. I said, so I'm negative. She goes, no, you know, once positive, always positive. But as she explained it to me, there are people who are positive, and they're labeled as undetectable because their viral load is under a certain count, like
is Magic
under 200.
Johnson kind of like that way?
He's undetectable.
Okay.
Now, there's a big difference between being undetectable and under 200 parts and being undetectable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had mouth swabs done that have come back negative.
Okay.
And I've had to have them done anonymously because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm just undetectable.
Yes. Yeah.
So she tells me that they've never seen numbers as viral load as high as mine in that office, only in textbooks. They've never seen somebody with they've never heard of anybody with a viral load that high and no immune system surviving. And I always think back when the doctor said there's no hope. And I was hopeless. And then
But you
Hope
did have a
walked in.
prayer.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Hope walked in. He presented himself to me.
Yeah.
And I just, at that point she said, "Do you want to pray?" I was like, "Yeah, let's pray right now. Come on." And from that moment on, I was on fire for the Lord, and I was just getting better and better and better and better. And the boils, I mean, like, there was hardly any scarring, but I was still a man with breasts. I was 160 pounds on my deathbed. And I found a new addiction after I moved from New Jersey to Maine. I found a new addiction, food.
Mm.
Because it's the most accessible addiction there is.
I've noticed that.
And I went up to 415 pounds.
Holy
What?
smokes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 415. I was twice of what I am now.
My
And
goodness.
in that process, I had went and had my bone density done, and the doctor in Maine said, "Oh, David, there's just had to be a big mistake. None of these bone density tests could possibly be yours, because nobody could go from almost gone bone density to better than that of a man their age should be bone density." And she said, "Well, so there's been a mistake," and I'm like, "No, that's God." And she's like, "No, it's a mistake." And so the only mistake was me trusting in the doctors when I'd already been seen by the physician.
Yeah.
And he had already seen me and touched me, and he has cured me. He healed me. And I know it. So from that process, because I was also diagnosed with chronic depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, sleeping disorders. I had probably 7 or 8 just medications for the mental health medications. And as soon as I came out of the world, I just knew. And I don't advocate anybody not taking medications, but I knew. The Holy Spirit of God within me let me know that depression, anxiety, bipolar, they're all results. They're symptoms of being in the world.
Yeah.
I was no longer of the world. I no longer needed any of them. And I just trashed everything. And then I did nothing but progress until I found food and went to 415 pounds, and they started offering me OxyContin and oxycodone. And I had sciatica so bad
Okay.
that I had to sleep in a recliner for 3 months. And they put a hospital bed in my bedroom
There you
because I
go
couldn't
again.
lay flat. And as soon as they did it, I had flashbacks.
I'm just going to say
And
that.
I immediately got on my knees
Ooh.
and said, "Lord, do this. Do this. Encourage me. Strengthen me. Help me through this. But I have to do this. I cannot live like this. I'm not getting back on pain medications."
We've only got about 10 minutes left, and one thing I want to talk about, and actually, I mentioned this earlier, I would love to interview some of your family members, especially your mother.
I think that would be very, very powerful. My mom has never been interviewed. I've actually been, for the last maybe 2 or 3 months, I've been thinking about it. Thinking about sitting down with her and doing a one-on-one. But
Next time you come over for a cup of coffee, we'll do
Yeah.
that.
because that, it's me.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be better to be somebody else, not me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I think that's a great idea. And
Mothers are. I didn't come from where you came from, but I came from a troubled home, and had father issues. And my mother, I mean, when the Boy Scouts would have Father's Day, my mother would show up because my dad was a alcoholic. You know,
Right.
he was doing his own thing, didn't have any time for me. But I can definitely tell you that had it not been for a mother, I mean, my father was a womanizer. He was a drunkard. He was never there. He was an abuser. I mean, everything bad you wanted in a father, he was there. Okay?
Yeah.
So my mom had me in church on Sundays, and I sang in a choir, and then I went to Wednesday services. I couldn't wait to get out of the house. I mean, I couldn't wait to be 18 years. I'm gone, and I was headed right where my dad was. Okay,
Wow.
had it not been for my mother's influence on me, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And by the way, we name our show B.J. Edwards after her, just in honor of her, because she's so saved my rear end, and I wanted to get away from her, but God kept putting me back in her life and forcing me to be back in there. But the hell that she went through in my life, and I can't imagine your mom. I mean, she having hope, giving up hope, having hope, giving up hope. I mean, it was just I'm sure like I was like a yo-yo with her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Because you know what? Now, today, sometimes she just looks at me, and I might be writing something or doing something, you know, on the table, like,
Oh, man.
and I look up, and she's glassy-eyed, staring at me, and
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
it moves me.
Oh,
That's all.
man.
It just moves me, and it touches me, and I know that she looks at me, and she says, and she tells me all the time, "I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful." And I'm like, I'm proud of you, because she's grown so much in the Lord in the past 8 years that I never expected that I would see my mom where she is in a relationship that she is with the Lord, let alone myself, you know. And I guess she thinks the same way about me. You know, anyone that knows me or has known me all my life, my one brother, the one, he lives in New Jersey, he looks at me sometimes when I go to visit him, and he just says, "This is just beautiful." And he cries, and he tells me, he says, "David," he said, "I never ever would have imagined you were the last person I ever would have thought would have come out of that."
Yeah.
You know, and even to come out of it is one thing, but to live for the Lord is a totally different thing to people.
There's I'm sure there's a lot of people who think God is imaginary. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, he is imaginary. Okay, he doesn't really exist, and you're kind of living proof that some things can happen. There was an extraterrestrial type experience that you had with something that brought you out of where you are. But let's just say that wasn't there. In terms of Christianity, and I'll sell that a little bit, the morals that it teaches and the way to get along with men. That you talk about the shootings in Florida and about how they want children to behave with other children. That's nothing more than Christianity. It's nothing more than that. They want to teach them to be Christians, but yet they refuse to have the Bible in the school. They refuse to have prayer in school. There was prayer in Florida. When those shootings happened, there was prayer in school. I can guarantee you there was a lot of prayer in school.
Oh yeah,
and
they were
outside
all
of school.
praying at that point.
But just running through, just go through the motions, and you understand what being a Christian and how good it really is. And you have to have, in a society, you have to have definites that you can stick with. You can't say that homosexuality is wrong and then 10 years later say it's right, and then 50 years later come back and say it's wrong again, because it confuses. But it's interesting, and I came to Christ trying to prove the Bible wrong. Oh, what a mistake, man. What a mistake. Because I'm stubborn and opinionated. And God several times.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I would never have imagined that.
I got a lady I want to introduce to you. She calls herself Mrs. BJ. But somebody asked me, what would make you believe or not believe that there is a God? It says, well, I'm going to get into the Bible. It's supposed to be perfect. So if I find one thing wrong in the Bible, I'm out of here, folks. Okay? Piece of cake. So I start trying to take the Bible apart. God leads me down these little rabbit holes. And I got him, and there's nothing down there but a little nugget of truth. So I put that in my pocket, and I climb back out of the hole. He'd take me down another rabbit hole. Nothing there but this little nugget of truth. So this goes on for about 6 months, okay? And all of a sudden I'm having conversations with people and I'm pulling out these little pieces of wisdom that God's given me. And all of a sudden I went, oh man, you got me, Lord. You got me.
Amen.
It was just an incredible experience.
Amen.
It's a way to go. It's not everybody has a fun trip like you do, David.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure that they just.
Those are fun. But let me just tell you real quick.
You got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, how my breasts
Yeah.
went away. I had, from all the hormones and the drugs, I had really bad teeth, and I had breasts, and I told God, at my moment of grace, that I did not want to look like this.
Okay.
And so I went up to 415 pounds. So I no longer look like that.
Okay.
But as I lost the weight,
Gotcha.
the breasts disappeared.
Oh my God.
As I started losing the weight, a grant came in for me to have all my dental work done and get brand new teeth. And just, you know, it's not about how we look. It's about how we
Feel about yourself. Yeah.
And I didn't want to represent God as a man with breasts, because that is in total opposition to what he created as a man. You know, and I just wanted to represent, like I looked at the Bible and what I saw was Jesus, and I said, okay, well, guess what? Now I can't be feminine either. And so I have to think not only, but like, what would Jesus do? I think that. I think would I, am I honoring, am I representing Jesus in the way I'm walking, in the way I'm talking, in the way I'm sitting, in the way I'm talking to somebody, or the way I reach out to somebody? Am I representing him in everything that I do? So Jesus taught me how to be a man without me even realizing that he was transforming me and teaching me how to be a man. I never had anybody teach me how to be a man.
Like any father would teach his son, right?
Exactly. And he did. He taught me. He came into my life. He let me know I had a father. He let me know he loved me. And he raised me.
Praise God.
He raised me. And he's still raising me. And here I am, 8 years old. And he's still bringing me up. And I'm still progressing. And I'm still learning. But the best thing about me is that I love encouragement. I love edification. I love reproof. I love correction. And I love the very love that we have, and the intimacy that men have for each other, that the enemy has twisted into sexual relations, and we know, and I know it's not. I know that I can be intimate with another man and just share our hearts and share Jesus and not have to be sexual with them.
That's being a real man, David.
Absolutely.
That isn't. I mean, you don't have to be that way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have to show strength,
Right.
obviously. But some strength is just the wisdom to step back and say no. I don't get involved here. Or I won't be crass here. I won't be what everybody wants me to be. I'm going to be what Jesus Christ, God wants me to be.
Right.
David, thank you very much, brother.
Thank you.
David
Before we
Arthur.
close, I got to do a Mr. Anderson thing.
Oh, of course. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Throw this out there. Current event, you know, recently in Florida, 17 taken out by a gun. And I was thinking this last night about this high school kid that's coming out, and all these fellow classmates and all these kids are out there holding up their love signs for this homosexual athlete, making a hero of him. And I'm thinking, this kid is more dangerous than a kid with a gun.
Amen.
How do you feel about that?
You can kill more
Amen.
people.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with it. It's the same thing with that picture that's going around the internet with Hugh Hefner and Billy Graham.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Hugh Hefner had more of a following because everything that we desire, our flesh desires, he was about. So we would flock to him. You know, and this boy, he's feeding all the lusts of his flesh.
Yep.
And in turn, he's feeding the lust of everyone's flesh around them by feeding their desires to be different, to rebel, to everything else. And I mean, as a Bible believing man of God, I know that there's a such thing as possession and oppression, and I've seen it, I've experienced it, and so I totally understand that that's how the world's going to be. But that's why I have been raised up, because I know what they're going through. I know how they feel. To where, see, it's like I can't go witness to somebody who beat his wife.
Yep,
I can tell them what the Bible says. I can
Yep,
show them
yep.
the love of God and tell them the truth. But can I do it compassionately? Every single pastor that had come to me has said to me, well, you just got to love them. Don't offend them. And I'm saying that's not true. If I wasn't offended, I wouldn't be here today. If that man didn't love God enough to offend me with truth, I wouldn't be here today. It's not just about just loving them, because that's not really love. It's kind of like being complacent with their sin.
I think the Bible talks maybe in Galatians somewhere about, do I become your enemy because I tell you the truth?
Because I tell you the truth, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why would Paul say that if he was loving on them and not offending them?
Yeah. You can present it maybe too hard, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know whether you can ever present the truth too soft or too hard.
I think with me, it's the Spirit.
Yeah.
The Spirit lets me know
Yeah.
who I can talk to, how I can talk to them.
Amen.
Because there's some people that I've witnessed to that I have beat around, because I knew that they were a little more fragile than the next one. And then there's some that I just feel compelled to just walk right up to them in the store and say, do you know God didn't create you to look like this?
Yeah.
And they look at me because they don't even realize that I know that they're a man dressed like a woman. And then nobody else around knows that they're a man. I know. And I'm telling them, God didn't create you to look like this. And there is a way out.
Yeah.
There is a way out. There is freedom. The freedom is in the struggle. The freedom is in the battle. That's where you find the freedom. It's not that I don't struggle. I do see women now. I see women now. And I see them the way God created them and the way God sees them. And because the first time I looked at a woman with lust, it scared me. And I cried.
Oh my goodness.
Because I had not only a mental, but a physical reaction to them.
You're back. You're back.
Yeah. And I had never, ever in my life saw a woman like that.
Yeah.
And I ran out of the store, got in my car and cried. And I said, Lord, I don't want to see women the way I saw men.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to see them the way you see them.
Absolutely.
And he gave me that. And I see them as the gifts that he created them to be, because their outside means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the inside.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And I see women, but it's not that I don't struggle. Temptation is always there, but temptation does not a sin make. And when I struggle, it's the struggle that keeps me focused on Jesus. So I don't get distracted with the world. But when distraction comes, I get focused on Jesus, because that's where I'm supposed to be at.
And that's a great lesson, because we get so much in the physical state, and then the mental state is part of that.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to look to Jesus during those times, because it's so personal to us. That takes a lot
we
of
give the
training.
enemy too much attention.
Yeah, that takes a lot of training to do what you're talking
We will
about.
blame the devil. The devil made me do it. Well, who cares? Struggle comes, focus on Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing the struggle. Thank you for allowing the affliction.
That's kind of boring to do, though. At first, it's either boring, or it's too hard to do, or you don't have time to do it, or I'll put it off till later. When Satan, that's what Satan's telling you.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm just on it.
Yeah. But you've had a little extra motivation, brother.
Yeah.
For those of us that and that's a problem we have in America today, is because we've got a roof over our head, we're eating regular,
Running water.
yeah. Anything we want, we get. We have horseless carriages, we can go anywhere we want to, so we're spoiled rotten. So when you have to take an extra step We're not used to that. And we're also used to having it be stop and go. In other words, if I take this step and I do this for 3 minutes, Lord, then you'll take care of things, right? And that doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But you have to really train. Most people have to train themselves, David. You consider yourself fortunate that you don't, because there's so many distractions for us. And your situation is maybe in time as you start growing and you get a little fat and sassy like we are, maybe you'll start thinking, well, geez, do I really have to do this today, Lord? I don't feel like doing it right now, or I'll do it. Look what time it is. I'm gonna go to bed.
I have that battle.
Okay.
But you know what I know? That if I feel like that,
Yeah.
that it's something I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
If David doesn't want to do it, then I better get to it.
Yeah.
But if I want to do it, I better question if I'm supposed to be
Yep.
doing it.
It's as Christians, it seems like when there's something that we should be doing, the first thing we hear is, well, you shouldn't be doing it. That's the first thing we get. First voice in the head. Yes, we have voices in our head. Everybody has voices in their heads.
Yes. And it's not a mental disorder.
You're right. But that first
It's
voice
really Jesus.
is going to discourage you.
Hopefully.
That's how
Hopefully.
Satan works.
Yeah.
He'll divide you. He'll discourage you. He'll put fear in you.
Yeah.
All those things. But it really, and I'm not there. I'm not nearly there where you are, David. I really struggle with putting things aside and focusing on God. That's really difficult for me to do. And then my senses, maybe because my senses are so raw, or maybe just because I'm lazy, I don't know. But I just don't get to doing it. And then I get wrapped up in the personal side of it and the emotional side of it, and then it overtakes me, and then I'm lost. And I have to bring myself up again and try to do it all over again. But generally it's done in the man as in the spirit with God. And that's so difficult for me to do. And I know a lot of other people are the same way. It's just so difficult to do that when you're not using to have to work that hard to feel good because you're in America. I mean,
Right.
my son went to Haiti, and I mean, it's desolate there. And I said, son, what do they do every day? He says, well, when they get up in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, they all do the same thing. They're looking for something to eat. We're not there, okay?
We don't have a clue.
No. And that can sharpen, like what you went through can sharpen those senses that you need to get through to God.
Right.
But for the general American, I think that's one of the reasons we have the many problems we have today. It's like we're watching the Vietnam War on TV. And it doesn't really affect us. We're watching bad things happen every day in Florida or wherever, or Las Vegas, but it doesn't affect me, and I can watch it on TV. I can be entertained by it, and I can go to sleep tonight, and that's all I need to do.
Right.
When it's really happening to you and your children at the same time. Go ahead.
But you know what, too? I think, when I finally realized it was somebody said to me, well, you contradict yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, because you say there's total freedom from being homosexual, from being transgender. And I'm like, okay, and how did I contradict myself? They said, because you said it's not that you don't struggle, but you struggle.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, the freedom is in the struggle. I don't struggle with the struggle. You know, because I'm content on the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross. I'm content with that. I'm secure in Him. So I know that I don't have to struggle with the struggle, but the struggle is always going to be there. You know, I used to spend time taking it to the altar or taking it to prayer, saying, Lord, please remove this. Take this away. But so did Paul. We know 3 times when he took it, Lord, remove it. No, my grace is sufficient for you. So I had to figure out, what does God mean by His grace is sufficient for me? And if His grace is sufficient for me, then am I going to struggle with the struggle? Or am I going to use the struggle? The affliction is going to become my friend. Because every time the affliction comes my way, I'm saying, thank you, Jesus, for allowing, not for the affliction, not because of the affliction, but thank you for allowing the affliction, because now you just reminded me, hey, guess what? Focus on the cross. Your vision got a little blurry. Between the world, our flesh, the enemy, we get distracted. But when we get unfocused, the affliction is our friend. And if we think of the affliction as our friend, we welcome the affliction. because it's the affliction that keeps us focused. Kind of like one of my two go-to verses in the very beginning was 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. And that he will not only give us more, he not only won't give us more than we can bear, but he'll provide an escape. And sometimes that escape is just the thought that he will provide an escape. It's that reminder. Hey, guess what? God's going to provide an escape. Well, duh, that's your escape. Take it. Temptation does not a sin make. So if I'm being tempted to do something and I remember that God could provide an escape, there's my escape. And I need to take that. You know, before I go any further. Because we don't have to sin. We just have to resist temptation to sin. And it's not easy, but it can be done. I mean, I see it every day. I have men and teenage boys that will come up to me and just come on to me. And I know it's a demonic attack. Because they didn't treat me like that when I lived in that world. Why do they treat me like that now?
Got a spirit over your head that's pointing down to them going, here's one.
It's gotta be a demonic attack.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. There's no other reason for it. Most of the time I laugh, but it helps me to stay focused because that thought comes in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
You could do it. Nobody will ever know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, who cares about anybody?
Great.
The only person that matters will know. The only one that matters will know. And I'm not going to let them down.
Well, that's a little icing on the cake for you folks. It's a little theological thought.
Yeah.
But David, we do appreciate your time. Appreciate you driving all the way over the way. What take you a day and a half to get over here for a cup of coffee? Is that about it?
Yeah, well, you know, it took me about 3 days to get to Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and then a day and a half, 2 days to get down here,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I love it.
So who knows? I'll be here in May though, for sure. Well, I'll be here next month for the Occupy 2018.
In Ohio.
Yep.
In Ohio. All right. Thank you very much. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last show. Thanks, David.
Thank you.